Sorry. Well, have you guys seen this awesome new show on Disney Plus about this renegade, awesome bounty hunter wearing cool Mandalorian armor that's like been through some really traumatic things, some life-changing events in his life, and now he's trying to put it all back together, rebuild his lifestyle, and find a new centered self, and get his ship back and everything. Yeah, I wish I was talking about Boba Fett, because he's the most badass, awesome bounty hunter wearing Mandalorian armor who lost his ship and all that cool stuff, trying to put everything back together with a new focus in life. But no, I'm talking about, spoiler alert, the Return of the Mandalorian, episode 5 of the Book of Boba Fett. Freaking awesome. Everything about it, except for two things. Two things? I don't know. I hope I don't talk too long about it. I'm going to try and talk fast like this, so I don't spend too much of your time, anyone who watches this. But this was a great show. It frustrates me so much, because putting this episode in the middle of this crappy series has it's like reminding you, by the way, look at how good this show could have been if we did Boba Fett right. This is Boba Fett. When he walks into that first, it's like it shows that they're like doing that underground gambling or smuggling thing or whatever, that crime ring behind like a butcher shop. Very, very modern. It's a trope. It's a detective movie trope where they go in and it's never like the main boss. They always go hit like a mini boss to get information about the main bad guy in the movie as like a little sub villain. That's what this was. They struts in there, that cool shot behind the freezer drapes, whatever those are called, and then it's like that cool silhouette, and it like looks like Boba Fett because it's like he's turned to the side and there's like a little point coming up out of his backpack, but you can see the silhouette of his helmet, and then he opens up and it's the Mandalorian with his spear. And why is he carrying around his spear? If you're walking around anywhere wearing that much heavy armor, I don't know if you've ever put like as a kid, I would put like a wooden sword. It wasn't a sword, it was a stick. But put a wooden stick in your shirt, pretending that was like your weapon. Putting a broom handle. I'm sure some people can relate to this. You put like a broom handle like in your shirt because like that was your back scabbard. If you're walking around with that freaking long spear, why? He has like 30,000 weapons, and he goes in and he's carrying around the darksaber. If you're gonna wear that and you're used to using the spear, pull that out before you pull out the darksaber. Why is his first go-to weapon the darksaber? No wonder he gets hurt. I don't know. It's good. It was really good. It's cool action. The wound, it went so fast. I missed exactly how to hurt himself. I got to rewatch that because then he says it was the darksaber that did it. Whatever. Really good. He steps out, tells all the underlings. They said, "Hey, go ahead and get your take the money, or else I'll have to deal with you." He's limping back. That was really cool. It's a good way to distract the minions because he's wounded and they saw him limping, so he's kind of got a situation there. The silhouette chop with the darksaber blade, darksaber, overhead chop like through where they're watching, seeing how the sequence concluded. Really cool because he already cut the guy in half. Awesome, that's badass. Awesome, gritty bounty hunter, gritty gangster stuff. That's what Boba Fett should be, but no, we have this pansy Disney version of Boba Fett, and he's really crappy. This is so good. It's juicy, and it's rich, and it's exciting, and it's fun, and it's dark, and you're like, oh, this is what the show should be. This should be the flavor and the tone of the Book of Boba Fett, instead of whatever the hell they're doing. It's so stupid. You have that sequence, and then remember from like the last episode, or the one before. I think it was the last episode, the moped speeder chase through Tatooine, or through the Mos Espa. Complete different tonal shift. Ridiculous. This is so good. Anyway, I gotta remember what happens. He leaves there. He goes to Halo. I'm not. That's not original. Everyone that sees this is gonna make that joke. Whatever. He goes to Halo. Now, I don't think it said where that was. I'm not going to Google it right now, but if that is in any way Nar Shaddaa, that is awesome. Just anyone that sees this that doesn't know Nar Shaddaa, they mentioned Nal Hutta, and I mentioned this in the previous episode. Nal Hutta is where the Hutts are from, but they like messed up their planet so bad that, you know, not they messed up, but whatever, it got messed up that their what's it called? You know, the atmosphere and everything, it's all pretty much ruined. That it's like, it's not really it's not easy to live on Nal Hutta, so most people went to this other nearby planet called Nar Shaddaa. It's like Nar Shaddaa, but Shada, kind of like Nal Hutta, Nar Shaddaa, but most people call it Nar Shaddaa. And it's like there's like a gas. This is old legends and comic books and stuff, but a long time ago. Back when Dark Horse used to do it before Marvel bought it. Marvel owned by Disney. Disney ruins everything. Anyway, but it's like a gas planet where they built this, like, kind of like this big city, this industrial, awesome, underground, gritty city, floating in orbit around, or at least a part of, maybe it's connected, I don't think so, around now I'm all confused. Nar Shaddaa. You don't care about this, but I'm just saying it's a very notorious, gritty place. They've been there several times in different video games and in comic books. I'm not aware of any cartoon. I'm sure Clone Wars probably went there because Clone Wars did everything right, and I just never bothered to watch it. But anyway, really awesome. But that's the way they show this situation. Or this city where he's like in kind of some nicer places and then some grittier places and grungy places or grimy places. There's poor people, there's factories and stuff. That's exactly the way they should do Nar Shaddaa. It'd be so awesome. If that's their version of Nar Shaddaa, whatever, I'll take it. I don't care if it looks like Halo. Anyway, goes there. I liked all that stuff. I like seeing the casual side, the civilians, those people, and you listen to music. We talked about music before. The music playing in he walked to that little club. That sounds like Star Wars music. That doesn't sound weird. You know, was I talking on this show? I don't know. I was talking recently about it. I think I was talking to a friend of mine. That's what it was. I was talking to my friend Zach. We were complaining about the Jabba's Palace song in the Return of the Jedi from the special edition when they entered the Jedi Rock song because it doesn't sound at all like Star Wars music. Slice Noodles and the Max Reba Band, the original Lapti Neck song sounds like it. The Yup Nup song at the end of Return of the Jedi, the Cantina music, that all sounds good. Even the prequels, they had some little songs playing in different clubs and stuff they went to. Sounds good. This sounded good. I liked it. That scene was good. He goes down to the the underbelly where he has the sparring fight with the big guy. He meets up with the old Mandalorians from the other show. It was fine. I mean, nothing really exciting except for that flashback of the destruction of the Mandalorian planet was so awesome. Like, I went in the other room to get start making my breakfast, a cinnamon roll or a cinnamon bagel. Are you intrigued by my breakfast choice? Who cares? I went in the other room and I was like watching at the course because I was like, this is just exposition. I know you should be watching everything in the show, but whatever. I went and just took my eyes off screen for just a second. She started talking. Suddenly I started seeing flashes on the screen. I'm like, what is going on? I was like, oh my gosh, those are TIE bombers. I ran out and I rewound it to start back the sequence again, and it was so cool. It was so dark. I was like, I thought this was a Jon Favreau episode because it was dark. It was because it felt almost like it was like a Lion King animated, we're going to show this devastation, this sadness. I was thinking about the wildebeest sequence and stuff. I was like, this is so good. And then the fight scene with the Mandalorian, or the two guys fighting, and I was like, okay, that's fine. He leaves the planet. He lies about. This was weird. He doesn't lie. He considers lying, but he's honest about not taking off his helmet. And it's just funny that, again, right in the middle of the show where everyone's complaining that Boba Fett's not wearing his helmet, they have a whole conversation reminding us about the importance of Pedro Pascal never taking off his helmet. I don't remember the character's name. I don't care. The Mandalorian. The Mandalorian doesn't take off his helmet. He's very strict with it, and they put that right in the middle of a better show. This was its own show. A better episode in the show that everyone's complaining about. It's we don't like the Boba Fett story, and we hate seeing his face so much. Most people do. And then in the middle of that, we're like, hey, remember how awesome this show was? And on top of that, remember how we didn't even have to show his face, and we make a whole dialogue about it, and have him be excommunicated from the faction over it? That's awesome! So he leaves, no longer a Mandalorian. I like how he's walking around without his missile, by the way. And then he goes to this regular custom, it's like a cruise ship, a Starliner, just a transport, just taking civilians back and forth, like their airplanes. kind of like Anakin and Padme did when they went back to Naboo in in episode 2. Now, in episode 2, that made sense. You're going from Coruscant, a very heavily populated place, to Naboo, which is a very populated and it's a noble place. There's royalty there and everything. It makes sense that there be some kind of a liner that goes to that location. Why is that big giant ship full of people landing on Tatooine? Not only on Tatooine, but in Mos Eisley, where we've already established that Mos Eisley is like run down and economically like devastated, being overrun by moped gangs, you know? I that was weird. I was like, he should have had like 4 alternate flights and dumped off. Do you remember in Muppets Went Manhattan? When the Muppets went to Manhattan and they didn't even have a direct flight. They just opened the bottom and dumped the Muppets out of the plane. They were like falling and they had to open the parachutes because they like their flight was so cheap or whatever. That's what they should have done with the Mandalorian. Just boot him out and let him like use his rocket pack. He's like, you can land, right? And just like low orbit, dump him out and let him like kind of like Iron Man when he comes out of orbit in the first movie when he's testing his suit. Speaking of which, that's exactly what the end sequence where he's testing the new Naboo starfighter thing or ship went up. I was like, this has got to be a Jon Favreau, because his test flight of that ship felt just like when he wore the Mark II suit in Iron Man 1. When he wore the silver suit, he even painted the ship silver. He took it off and he was like flying around and he's like even saying like, let's see what these things can do. I swore he was like, let's do some diagnostics. And the old lady who reminds me, I can't remember her name, but she reminds me of the old lady in the movie Grease that was helping the kids put together the Grease Lightning. And she was like, oh, it's as hot as the parts that are on it or whatever, like, because she was like just kind of, yeah, I'm gonna help you put together. She was like the mechanic teacher or whatever. Anyway, that's who she reminds me of. She was like in on it and she was really funny. The Grease teacher. This lady gets annoying. Like, she's fine. And her part in The Mandalorian was fine because she only had a couple scenes. I swore she talked like a million words a minute and just wouldn't shut up. She just kept going and going and going. Her scenes just kept going longer and longer and longer. She talked way too much. And I was like, you're annoying now. Like, she's good in small doses. She's a funny character. But she just wouldn't stop talking, trying to be hilarious. I didn't like her dialogue. It could have been a little more to the point. Just give her little flavor, her little fun. Talking to the droids and stuff, that's fine. And a couple of little dialogue about the ship. But her dialogue about the ship is like, why would he, of all people, be concerned about having such an old ship? They established that the Razor Crest was an older ship. That was like pre-Empire, they said. I'm pretty sure. Now this ship is like in the Republic era. And not only that, she says it was hand-built back then. I'm like, no, it wasn't. It's a royal ship. Okay, remember everyone talks about this. Remember the big giant room with the power generators that they had the Darth Maul fight in a planet that has with a society that has that technology and a need for that big huge generator, whatever the hell it was doing. That society was hand building their Naboo starfighters, which she even established were the royal protectors of the ship. Those beautiful chrome slick ships. The ships that when it got shot once, they had to send out an army of R2 droids, like 4 or 5 or 6 of them, that could roll out onto the wing of the ship and fix it up like that. That kind of a technology on the royal ship. They were hand building their escort fighters. I don't think so. That was so dumb. Anyway, he shouldn't have a problem with it being an end. He's like, that's a pile of junk. Okay, well, I don't buy that. I think he would have known the ship too, by the way. I see the Mandalorian as one of those guys that he's like, I like American muscle cars. You know, that guy that could name every model of every ship and could identify them and everything. He knows the history of all the different, what are they, not dealerships, whatever they call whoever the guys that make cars. You know what I'm trying to say. The make and model people. But he's the guy that would know all those classic ships, and he would have been the one to see that ship and be like, oh my god, not that he is interested in a starfighter, but he would have seen that ship and be like, oh, I know what that is, but why do I want that? And she'd have to convince him. And I just want to point this out too, by the way, this wasn't their intent, but I liked that she was bragging up this Naboo starfighter so much, because in Rogue Squadron in the games, Rogue Squadron 1, I think it's 1, on the Super Nintendo. Is it 1? Yeah, it's 1. You could unlock, this was shortly after Episode 1 came out. No, right before Episode 1 came out. We're right around that time. You could unlock as a secret ship the Naboo Starfighter, and it was the best ship. It was, of all the A-Wings and X-Wings and Y-Wings and TIE Fighters and all this crap that you could have, and the Millennium Falcon, like, the Y-Wing had, like, the most missile, well, yeah, almost the most missiles. Like, it had the max for a starfighter. It could go faster. It was more maneuverable. And it was like the coolest ship. I hated the ship. I hate the style of it. I still have the toy of it. It's a cool toy, actually. It's a cool looking style. It's just not Star Warsy for me. And it's fine. I like X-Wings and A-Wings better. But in that game, that was the best ship that you could get. It was just smooth and perfect. Great control and great armaments. And it was fun. It was fun to fly around. That's my ideal go-to ship in that game. That was awesome that, like, in this, she's like, this is a classic. This is the ship that you want. I promise. You're going to like it when you fly it. That's how I felt in the Rogue Squadron game. Anyway, all that stuff on Tatooine was fine. I mean, the gimmicks were, it was like getting over the top. And I like the way they do the montage scenes of him building ships. They did it a couple times in the first 2 seasons of Mandalorian. I don't know why we had to stop and have so much dumb dialogue where he's like, where does this go? And the droid's like, the droid has a holoprojector, like Iron Man's Batcave, whatever his place is called, his house in Malibu, that like shoots like, here's what this thing is, and this is where it goes. Like, I was like, come on, it's a pit droid. Why would it have that? Anyway, yeah, I liked all that stuff. I liked him getting there. I feel like I missed a whole scene. Oh, the background with the Mandalorians was the death of them. The Purge was really cool. And the Purge used to be the name of when they killed all the Jedi. In Nar Shaddaa, Vima Vobada? Is that her name? Vima Vobada? She was an ancient old Jedi who was in hiding. And she talked about in those comics that they had Nar Shaddaa the first time I think it was ever shown. Its first appearance. In Dark Empire, the comics, she talked about how she survived the Great Purge of Darth Vader, and that's what it was called. And I have a Great Purge comic. Don't I? Yep, Purge right there. Darth Vader killing a bunch of Jedi, and this is that's Dark Horse. See, Dark Horse knew how to do cool stuff. The Purge wasn't about the Mandalorians, but they adapted it. It's fine. That was what it used to be called when Vader and the Emperor went and killed all the Jedi, but that's okay. What else happened in this awesome show? He gets there, he's talking. Oh, here's the other thing. She speaks Jawa? Now, I'm fine with her speaking Jawa because this is the same company, talking about Disney, that made Han Solo speak Chewbacca. Or Wookiee is what yes, it's not Chewbacca. Which is fine, but like Chewbacca can speak English. Why does he need to speak Wookiee for Chewbacca to understand him? And it always didn't settle with me very well. It wasn't my biggest complaint of unnecessary details in that movie, but that's fine. But in this one, remember the Jawas when they sold the droids to Uncle Owen and Luke? He was saying, no, not that one, not that. Hey, what about this one? And he's like talking to the droids, and he's like, what are you trying to push on us? And like, hey, wait. Like, the Jawas understood basic, and he could talk directly to them. But in this one, the Mandalorian's having to talk to the lady, and the lady's turning around and speaking Jawa to the Jawas. Why? To give her some more comedic moments that I thought were annoying. I was stupid. She doesn't need to speak Jawa. That she dated a Jawa. It was funny because I even indicated in a previous episode, I hope they don't show us what Jawas look like, because that would just be obnoxious. But she even mentions that they're furry. I'm like, ooh, because I always thought they were kind of reptilian. But anyway, it doesn't matter. If they show the inside of a Jawa, I will be pissed. I will be really pissed because that's stupid. I think I was talking about that when we were talking about the Tusken Raiders, how they shouldn't show what a Tusken Raider. They shouldn't take off its mask, and they definitely shouldn't show what a Jawa looks like. The mystery and the intrigue should always be there. Anyway, I didn't like that. The montage was done better in The Mandalorian before having all this cut stop to show more conversations with the droids for some comedic moments, whatever. When they push the ship out, when it's done, they push it out into the landing bay for it to take off. In the docking bay, I was like, he's walking around kind of looking at it and feeling it and checking it out as if like he just walked into a room with it for the very first time. He was in there working on it for all that time. He knew what it looked like. Why was he all of a sudden like, oh, I didn't see it in this lighting before. Oh, speaking of lighting, that's one thing I want to say. I know I'm all over the place. I don't care. The lighting, go back and watch the fight with the Mandalorian and the big Mandalorian. I don't know his name. The guy with 3 boosters on his jetpack. The lighting, when they're swinging around that darksaber, the lighting like changes in all the angles of the little directions and the kinks in the Mandalorian armor. It is so cool to look. If you watch that specifically, the lighting, the reflecting of the light, because they're doing that. It's a CGI. I mean, I imagine it's a CGI weapon they're fighting with. So he's got like a plastic rod or whatever. Even if it lights up, it's not going to do that detailed lighting. And they're working off of that. They've shown that big dome that the set that they use for the Mandalorian is a big LED 3-dimensional screen or whatever it is, right? So what they're doing with that lighting is pretty cool. I don't know enough about filmmaking or this new advanced piloting, pioneering technology that this show is famous for. You can watch all the behind the scenes stuff if you want to know more about it. But like it's amazing what they did with that lighting. All the stuff glaring off of the armor during the swinging around with the darksaber. It's super cool. Watch that. Go back and watch that part just looking at the lighting armor. It's so amazing. Anyway, whatever. I liked all of it. Oh, and then he goes up. He's doing his test run. He's like, let's see what these things can do. She says, point the ship between the 2 suns and you'll go right to Beggar's Canyon. And my first thought was, I know they love their little Easter eggs, but I said, if he threads the throne needle in that ship going that fast, I will be upset. Because it's ridiculous to try and thread the stone needle. If you don't know what I'm talking about, don't worry about it. But if Luke had this reputation that he was able to thread the stone needle, this happens right before A New Hope in the old canon. And before that, Biggs was the only one that had ever made it through the stone needle. They would fly through on their fly hoppers, the sky hoppers, the ones that look like like the flux capacitor, those little ships that Luke's playing with in A New Hope in his engine room, in his little hangout. Anyway, flying that little speeder, not a spaceship, a speeder, flying through the throne needle. The stone needle was like a big deal. If freaking this Naboo starfighter, or all decked out from the Pimp My Ride sequence we just had, was gonna thread the stone needle, I would have been really mad. If they showed it, it would have been cool, because we've never seen it on in live action. But if he flew and like went up from it. But by the way, I didn't know that was Beggar's Canyon. I think they did say that in episode 1. I think I completely forgot that in the pod race they actually do go through Beggar's Canyon, because you see the little ramp, you see those little nostalgia shots. So it was kind of cool. Anyway, I liked it. And then he goes up and I was like sitting there like, why is he flying that close? He's being a dick flying that close to the to that Star Cruiser, and how it lands and like takes off. Like, I don't know where it's going. Maybe it went all the way out of orbit to go to Mos Espa, which is actually a successful, thriving population right now, and then land. That makes sense, but it doesn't seem like you need to go out of orbit to move over and come back. But he goes up and he starts like buzzing the tower like Maverick. And then I'm like, he's gonna get in trouble for that, and he's being a dick. And he pulls up next to the kid, the Rhodian kid. I love that, by the way. Him flying and him taking his weapons off for the droid. the little disarming, like even him like shooting out his rope into a coil and him dripping out the missiles and everything. I love that sequence. I thought it was very well done. It wasn't over the top. It wasn't all comedic like in Oscar or a lot of movies have done that. Kind of as a parody where he's taking out these ridiculous things. It was just enough that it was just kind of cool to see all the crap he pulled out. But again, he I don't know. I wouldn't have dropped the Darksaber if I was him, and I would have said this isn't a weapon. It's a hilt, but I would have said this is a religious artifact or something, or it's like a personal thing. I would have kept it on me. I wouldn't have, if I was him, I would have not have trusted it. So they just did that bit not to keep him in possession of it, but they did that bit just to do a bit, and it worked. It was really funny. I liked it. Yeah, so he goes up there, and then you have the I got excited. My brother actually called me right at that part of the episode because he didn't know I was watching it, and I had to pause this show because I was like, oh my gosh, he's about to get harassed by the redneck country cops cruising around Tatooine patrolling for the rebellion. And then it cut after my conversation. It went back to it, and he was. They were like total redneck. I need to see your license and registration, that kind of stuff. And he's sitting there BSing them. And then I was like, those guys, there's got to be the same guys. I told my brother, I was like, they haven't shown him in the cockpit. I was like, I hope it's the same guys from the Mandalorian series when he left on the ship. I'm tired, guys. Anyway, it was a fun sequence, and then he they're like, I don't remember what they said right before he finally was like, screw this, and he blasted out of there. The guy recognized his voice, and they said they were going to land him, or he was going to give up his control to them to maneuver him down, which was weird. And then he blasts out of there, and he just disappears like a bullet bike taken off from the highway patrol. And then they're like, "Oh, we could chase him." He's like, "Well, we could go investigate, or do we want to go spend all day filling out paperwork?" And they're like, "No." They just take off. I loved it. That's the first time I've really laughed during this show. That's the first time I was excited about an action sequence was in the beginning, and then the flashback was at the bombing. Everything this show has done or this episode did, it did it right. It was pitch perfect, not directed by Jon Favreau, which is fine. Not everything great was by Jon Favreau. I'm just saying that I really thought it was because of how good it was, and it had a lot of Iron Man 2 and Iron Man 1 feel, but it did not. It was really good. Am I back on board for the series? No, because this was episode 5. It's only got 2 more episodes, and I already and still do not care about Boba Fett. What's the Mandalorian going to do other than show up how awesome he is compared to Boba Fett? You put this episode in the middle of this crappy series, you're like, I missed the Mandalorian. You're going to put the Mandalorian next to Boba Fett, you're like, yeah, I really wish this show was about the Mandalorian. Here's my new theory. After watching this, it really made me think about it. I think the Mandalorian series, and a lot of people have speculated this, that it might have been originally an adapted draft of a potential Boba Fett movie. They did have announcements for Boba Fett movies and stuff before Solo and The Rise of Skywalker really pissed everyone off, and then then Disney had to backtrack everything and start all over, clean the slate. But I think the Mandalorian series might have been a bunch of notes. I know Jon Favreau and Filoni were doing it. It was written, created, and everything, but there may have been some story structure, some ideas, some beats that they worked into a Mandalorian series. And a lot of people speculated at the beginning that they didn't call it Mandalorian, or they call it Mandalorian instead of Boba Fett because then you have to give George Lucas some money if you use Boba Fett. Well, then later on they brought in Boba Fett. And then that story was good because it was originally supposed to be about Boba Fett. And now they worked in Boba Fett at the end of that show because everyone wanted to see Boba Fett meet the Mandalorian. Oh, if only they could realize how disappointed we'd be in who Boba Fett is in the eyes of Disney. And then here we are. Now we're looking at them in contrast. Now they're writing a Boba Fett show, but it's just Disney prequel, just garbage, just regurgitated all over it. It's just annoying. Anyway, this is long. I apologize. I'm not really. This is if you want to watch wild thoughts, so these are my thoughts. I had a lot of thoughts, and they're not too wild, but they're there. I liked the show. The Ish-Tib, the guy with the green eyes. That's the one that was at the casino place or whatever. Or no, at the club that hired Mandalorian that he brought the head. He's like, I'd keep that on ice. That guy, that Ishi-Tibs, I think that's a species. Ishi-Tib. Sounds like a sushi restaurant. But anyway, it was cool here seeing them. I mean, I don't think we've ever seen them talk before, at least in live action. That was cool. I like that species. They're pretty cool. Kind of like seeing the Trandoshans in the last season, in the last episode was really cool. I mean, we've seen Trandoshans. I'm saying it's good. They did some good course correcting for a show that's not Boba Fett. So you put this show in the middle of Boba Fett, it just makes you wish you were watching more Mandalorian. And I didn't think Mandalorian was flawless, but I think this episode almost was. Just cut back on the dialogue of the old lady. Anyway, those are my thoughts. And also, didn't Red 5 have a big burnout from the back from what happened in the movie when he had a bad motivator? Look, that whole thing. He overflowed with crap and smoke and burn. Like in the Mandalorian, I pointed that out, that he still had that scar, which I thought was awesome. Now it's all cleaned up. I guess you got a little bit of money. Oh, and that's the only one other gripe. The freaking Jawas are scavengers, and now they have less traffic going to the system than ever. With Bib Fortuna running the show, there's less smugglers and stuff like that, a lot of that kind of traffic. Whatever's going on in Mos Espa is just still a little confusing, but whatever. Maybe there's more more ships and stuff. But the Jawas are scavengers. They're going off of wreckage. Like, I don't think there's that much traffic coming in and out of Mos Eisley or Mos Espa that causes that much wreckage and broken ships and pieces for them to scavenge and put together. You'd have people like Watto, who have like yards where they're trading and selling with it. But Jawas are scavengers. Watto wasn't a scavenger. He was a businessman. It makes sense that he's buying used crap and like getting some money for it. And he wasn't going in credit, so he was just like trading. So the Jawas finding scraps that to the point that she could sit there and specify what kind of parts she wanted for her for the ship, and for the Mandalorian to have translated through her the same thing. That didn't make sense. Why couldn't she just talk to them? Or why couldn't he just talk to them? And why is it like they have like their Amazon page or something where she could just pick out whatever she wants and they would just come right back with it? That's not how it worked. Anyway, all right, that's enough. Thanks you guys for watching. If you watched, if you didn't watch, well, you don't get my thanks because you didn't watch it to get to the end to hear my thanks. So there you go. All right, Mandalorian episode 5, The Return of the Mandalorian. Sorry, Boba Fett. Book of Boba Fett, episode 5, The Return of the Mandalorian. Just reminds us of a better time last year.